The crystal chandelier sparkled above the ballroom as Emily Carter adjusted the silver necklace around her neck. Tonight marked her 5th wedding anniversary with her husband Daniel. 5 years. 5 years of sacrifices. 5 years of putting his dreams before her own. 5 years of believing that love was enough. She smiled nervously as guests filled the hall. Friends, family members, business partners gathered to celebrate what seemed like the perfect marriage. At least that's what everyone thought. Emily spotted her younger sister Sophia standing near the stage in a beautiful red dress. The sight made her smile. After their parents died, Emily had practically raised Sophia herself. She had worked 2 jobs to pay for Sophia's college education. She had skipped meals so Sophia could have textbooks. She had sacrificed vacations, relationships, and opportunities, and she never regretted it. Not once. Because family was everything. As the evening continued, Daniel tapped a glass with a spoon. The room grew silent. Emily's heart fluttered. Maybe he had prepared something romantic, a speech, a surprise, a renewal of vows. After all, the last year had been difficult. Daniel had become distant, spending more time away from home and less time talking to her. But tonight felt different, special. Daniel stepped onto the stage. His smile looked strange, forced, nervous. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. The audience applauded. Emily's cheeks turned pink. She thought she knew what was coming. She was wrong, completely wrong. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket. The crowd gasped. A ring box. Emily covered her mouth. Tears instantly filled her eyes. Then Daniel turned, not toward her, toward Sophia. The entire room froze. Even the music seemed to stop. Sophia stepped onto the stage, her eyes already glistening, as if she knew exactly what was happening, as if this had been planned. "Sophia," he said softly, "you are the woman I've truly loved for years. Will you marry me?" Silence, absolute silence. Emily felt her heartbeat disappear. The world tilted beneath her feet. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't understand. Then she saw Sophia nodding through tears. Yes. The single word shattered everything. Guess, someone dropped a glass. Another person whispered, "Oh my God." Emily stood motionless. The room blurred. Her husband, her sister, the 2 people she trusted most, standing together, smiling, celebrating, while her entire world collapsed around her. Daniel finally looked at Emily, not with guilt, not with shame, just indifference, cold indifference. "Emily," he said, "I didn't want to hurt you." The sentence almost made her laugh. Didn't want to hurt her? He had just destroyed her life in front of hundreds of people. Sophia stepped forward. "We didn't mean for this to happen." Emily stared at her. The girl she had raised, protected, loved, the girl who used to call her every night when she was scared, the girl who once promised, "You'll always be my favorite person." Emily slowly removed her wedding ring. The diamond sparkled beneath the lights. 5 years. Reduced to a piece of metal, she placed it on a nearby table. Then she spoke, her voice surprisingly calm. "I hope you're both very happy." Daniel blinked. Sophia looked confused. Neither expected that response. Emily turned and walked away. No screaming, no crying, no scene. Just silence, the silence of a heart breaking beyond repair. Outside rain poured from the night sky. She walked without direction, without purpose, without knowing where she was going. Hours later, she found herself sitting alone on a bus stop bench, soaked, exhausted, broken. For the first time in years, Emily had nowhere to go, no husband, no family, no future. A black luxury car slowly pulled up beside the curb. The window lowered. A man in an expensive dark suit looked at her. His sharp features and calm eyes stood out immediately. "You're going to get sick sitting there." Emily ignored him. Most strangers would have driven away. He didn't. Instead, he stepped out into the rain. Without hesitation, he removed his expensive coat and placed it over her shoulders. She looked up. "Why?" The stranger smiled faintly. "Because someone should." Emily didn't know it then, but the man standing before her was Kang Min-jae, one of the most feared and powerful Korean Mafia bosses in the world. And that simple act of kindness was about to change both of their lives forever. Rain continued falling across the empty street. Emily sat frozen beneath the stranger's coat, staring at the man who had shown her more kindness in 5 minutes than she had received from the people she loved most. "Who are you?" she finally asked. The man looked toward the dark city skyline. "My name is Min-jae, nothing more. No explanation, no introduction, just a name." Normally, Emily would have found that suspicious. Tonight, she was too exhausted to care. Min-jae noticed the tears she was trying desperately to hide. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't offer empty advice. He simply sat beside her in silence. Sometimes silence was the greatest kindness. After several minutes, Emily laughed bitterly. "Do I look that pathetic?" Min-jae glanced at her. "You look hurt." The answer surprised her. Most people would have called her dramatic, emotional. He simply acknowledged her pain, and somehow that made her cry harder. Years of bottled-up emotions came rushing out. The long nights waiting for Daniel, the birthdays he forgot, the promises he broke, the loneliness she had ignored. The betrayal she had witnessed only hours ago, everything spilled out. Min-jae listened, never interrupting, never judging. When she finished, he handed her a clean handkerchief. You loved them, nodded. More than myself. Min-jae's eyes darkened slightly. That was your mistake. His words weren't cruel, they were honest, and honesty hurt. The next morning, Emily woke up inside a luxurious hotel suite. For several terrifying seconds, she couldn't remember where she was. Then everything came back, the anniversary, the proposal, the betrayal, the rain. Min-jae, a note rested on the nearby table. You needed rest. Breakfast is downstairs. No obligations, no expectations. Min-jae Emily stared at the note. No obligations, no expectations. When had anyone last offered her kindness without wanting something in return? She couldn't remember. Days passed, then weeks. Emily found a small apartment, started rebuilding her life, and every few days, Min-jae would appear unexpectedly, never intrusive, never demanding, sometimes bringing coffee, sometimes checking whether she had eaten, sometimes simply sitting quietly while she talked. The friendship felt strange, comfortable, safe. One afternoon, Emily asked him what he did for a living. For the first time, he laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. Trust me, it's complicated. She rolled her eyes. That sounds suspicious. It probably is. Neither realized how much they had begun depending on those conversations. Meanwhile, Daniel's life was beginning to unravel. What had seemed like a romantic fairy tale quickly became a nightmare. Sophia wasn't the woman he imagined, and Daniel wasn't the prince she expected. Without Emily holding everything together, their relationship began falling apart. Arguments became daily. Accusations followed. Resentment grew. Then came another shock. Several of Daniel's business contracts disappeared. Major investors suddenly withdrew. Important meetings were canceled. Clients stopped returning calls. Within months, his company was struggling. Daniel couldn't understand why. He searched for answers everywhere. None came. What he didn't know was that many influential business leaders respected Emily. Over the years, she had quietly helped countless people, employees, customers, neighbors, strangers. She remembered birthdays, helped families during emergencies, volunteered at shelters, supported small businesses. People remembered. When they learned how she had been treated, many chose to walk away from Daniel voluntarily, not because anyone forced them, because actions have consequences. One evening, Emily volunteered at a local community center. She helped serve meals to struggling families. An elderly woman accidentally dropped her tray. Food scattered across the floor. Several people looked away. Others complained. Emily immediately knelt down. It's okay, she said. Woman began. I'll help. My husband passed away last month. Emily hugged her without hesitation. The woman clung to her like a lifeline. Unbeknownst to Emily, someone was watching. Min-jae. He had arrived to pick her up after volunteering. Instead, he stood silently in the doorway, watching, observing, understanding. For years, people feared him, respected him, obeyed him, but very few showed genuine kindness. Emily did it naturally, without cameras, without recognition, without reward. That night, as they drove through the city, Min-jae finally asked the question, why do you keep helping people? Emily looked out the window. Because I know what it feels like when nobody helps. Min-jae gripped the steering wheel tighter. Those words hit him harder than she realized. For the first time in years, the feared Mafia boss felt something unfamiliar. Admiration. Not because Emily was strong, not because she was beautiful, not because she needed saving, but because despite everything she had lost, she still chose kindness, and that made her stronger than anyone he had ever met. Neither of them noticed the black SUV following their car through the city, or the camera capturing photographs from a distance. Someone had begun investigating Emily, someone dangerous, someone connected to Min-jae's hidden world, and very soon, Emily's peaceful new life would be placed in serious danger. The black SUV remained several cars behind, invisible to most people, but not to Min-jae. As he drove Emily home, his eyes briefly shifted to the rearview mirror. Once, twice, 3 times the same vehicle following them. His expression remained calm. Emily noticed nothing. She was busy telling him about a little girl from the community center who dreamed of becoming a doctor. The kid is amazing, Emily said with a smile. She studies every spare minute she gets. Min-jae listened quietly. He always seemed interested when Emily talked about helping others, as if her stories reminded him that good people still existed. When they reached her apartment building, Emily thanked him. You know, you don't have to keep checking on me. Min-jae raised an eyebrow. I know. Then why the moment? Neither spoke. Finally, he answered, because I want to. Emily felt her cheeks warm unexpectedly. Before she could respond, Min-jae nodded and drove away. The moment he turned the corner, his smile vanished. A different man emerged, cold, focused. Dangerous, the kind of man the criminal underworld feared. He pressed a button on his phone. A voice answered instantly, "Boss. Find out who's following me." Understood. The call ended. 24 hours later, Min Jae received the answer. The report angered him. Not because someone was watching him. That happened all the time. What bothered him was the reason. A rival criminal organization had discovered Emily's connection to him, and they planned to use her, not as a target, as leverage, as weakness. The report included photographs of Emily leaving work, Emily volunteering, Emily shopping, Emily laughing. Min Jae stared at the images. Something unfamiliar settled in his chest. Fear, not for himself, for her. Meanwhile, Emily's life seemed to be improving. For the first time in years, she felt free. She adopted a rescue dog named Charlie, started painting again, made new friends. Little by little, happiness returned. Then one afternoon, everything changed. Emily left a grocery store carrying several bags. An elderly man nearby suddenly collapsed. People stopped, stared, whispered, but nobody moved. Emily dropped her groceries and ran forward. "Call an ambulance!" She knelt beside the man, checked his breathing, held his hand, comforted him until help arrived. Hours later, after doctors stabilized him, Emily finally prepared to leave the hospital. That was when a middle-aged woman rushed toward her. Tears streamed down her face. "You saved my father." Emily shook her head. "The doctors saved him." "No," the woman replied. "They told me if nobody had acted quickly, he wouldn't have survived." The woman hugged her tightly. Emily smiled awkwardly. She never expected gratitude. She simply helped when help was needed. What she didn't know was that the elderly man was one of the city's most influential philanthropists, a man whose connections reached far beyond what anyone imagined, and he would never forget her kindness. That same evening, Daniel appeared outside Emily's apartment. She froze when she saw him. He looked different, older, tired, defeated. The confidence he once carried had vanished. "Emily," his voice sounded desperate. She said nothing. "I need to talk." "No, please." She should have walked away. Instead, curiosity kept her standing there. Daniel lowered his head. "My business is falling apart." Emily felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness. He continued speaking. "Sophia left. That surprised her." "What?" Daniel laughed bitterly. 3 months ago. The revelation hung in the air. The woman he had destroyed his marriage for had abandoned him. Emily almost felt sorry for him, almost. "I made a mistake," Daniel whispered. The words came too late, far too late. Emily looked directly into his eyes. For years she had imagined hearing those words. Now that she finally did, they meant nothing. "Daniel, you didn't make a choice, Take." He blinked. The truth hit harder than any insult. Tears formed in his eyes. "I miss you." Emily shook her head gently. "No." Daniel frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You don't miss me." She stepped closer. "You miss having someone who forgave everything." Silence. "You miss having someone who always stayed." Another silence. "You miss what I did for you." Daniel couldn't argue because deep down he knew she was right. Emily walked away without looking back, and for the first time since their divorce, she felt truly free. Across town, Min Jae watched security footage from one of his offices. His men stood around a conference table. The atmosphere was tense. A rival organization had made its move. Several of their members had entered the city. And according to intelligence reports, they were planning something significant. One of Min Jae's advisors looked concerned. "Boss, we should relocate her immediately." "She's vulnerable." Min Jae stared at Emily's photo. The room waited. Finally he spoke. "No." The advisors exchanged confused glances. "If we move her now, she'll become a target. What do we do then?" Min Jae's voice became dangerously calm. "We protect her." Everyone understood what that meant. The rival organization wasn't merely threatening a woman anymore. They were threatening someone Min Jae cared about. And that was a very dangerous mistake. Later that night, Emily sat on her apartment balcony with Charlie sleeping beside her. For the first time in months, she felt hopeful about the future. She had no idea that armed men were already watching her building from a distance. She had no idea that Min Jae's security team was secretly watching them, and she definitely had no idea that a storm was coming. A storm that would force Min Jae to reveal who he really was, a storm that would change both of their lives forever. Emily woke up to Charlie barking furiously. The rescue dog never barked like that, never. She glanced at the clock, 3:17. The apartment was dark and silent, yet Charlie stood near the window, growling at something outside. A chill ran down her spine. She carefully moved the curtain aside. Nothing, just darkness, empty streets. Still, an uneasy feeling settled in her chest. The next morning, she tried to forget about it. Work was busy. The community center needed volunteers. Life continued. But the feeling never completely disappeared. Someone was watching. She couldn't explain why. She just knew. That evening, Min Jae arrived unexpectedly. The moment he saw her face, he noticed something was wrong. "What happened?" Emily shrugged. Probably nothing. Tell me, she explained the incident. The barking, the strange feeling, the sleepless night. As she spoke, Min Jae's expression grew colder. Much colder. Emily noticed. You're worrying me. For several seconds, he seemed to be debating something internally. Then he made a decision. Come with me. What? Just trust me. Normally she would have refused, but something in his voice felt urgent, serious. Within an hour, they were driving out of the city. The road climbed higher into the mountains. Eventually, they arrived at an enormous estate hidden among forests and cliffs. Emily stared. This is your house. Min Jae parked the car. One of them. Emily laughed nervously. Who exactly are you? Min Jae looked at her, really looked at her. The truth could no longer be avoided. For months, he had hidden parts of himself, protected her from his world, protected himself from hope. But now danger was too close. You deserve honesty. Min Jae led her inside. The mansion was breathtaking, elegant, quiet. Yet something felt unusual. Several men in dark suits stood near entrances. Others monitored security screens. Nobody smiled. Nobody relaxed. Everyone treated Min Jae with immediate respect or fear. Finally, they entered a private room. Min Jae closed the door. Then he spoke. My name is Kang Min Jetpart. A faint smile crossed his face, then disappeared. I lead one of the largest criminal organizations in Asia. Silence. Emily stared, certain she had misheard. What? His eyes never left hers. The room suddenly felt smaller, he continued. Many people call it a Mafia organization. The words echoed in her. Mafia, criminal organization. Feared. Impossible, yet everything suddenly made sense. The expensive cars, the security, the mysterious disappearances, the influence, power. Emily sat down slowly, trying to process everything. You're serious? Yes. For the first time since meeting him, she didn't know what to say. Minutes passed, neither spoke. Finally, Emily asked the question that mattered most. Have you hurt people? Min Jae didn't lie. Yes, the honesty hurt, yet she appreciated it. I've also protected people. Another silence. I've done things I'm not proud of. His voice carried genuine regret, not excuses, not justifications, regret. Emily looked at him carefully. The man before her wasn't pretending to be perfect. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was simply telling the truth, and somehow that mattered. Then another realization struck her. Wait. Her eyes widened. The danger, I nodded, is connected to me. The room became quiet again. Emily should have been terrified. Maybe she was. But strangely, her strongest emotion wasn't fear. It was understanding. For months, Min Jae had helped her, protected her, supported her, without asking for anything, without expecting anything. Everything he did suddenly seemed even more meaningful. He could have ignored her that rainy night. He didn't. He could have walked away. He didn't. He could have treated her like everyone else treated him. He didn't. Emily stood, walked toward the window and thought, a long time ago, Daniel had looked perfect, respectable, successful, safe, yet he betrayed her. Min Jae looked dangerous, complicated, broken. Yet he had shown her nothing but kindness. Appearances could be deceiving. Eventually she turned around. Min Jae looked almost nervous. The powerful Mafia boss appeared more afraid of her answer than any enemy. That realization touched her heart. What happens now? His shoulders relaxed slightly. Now? He paused. Now I keep you safe. Before she could respond, alarms suddenly exploded throughout the mansion. Red lights flashed. Men began shouting outside. Footsteps thundered through the hallways. Min Jae instantly moved. Every trace of hesitation vanished. The dangerous leader returned. A security officer burst into the room. Boss, what happened? The officer looked grim. We intercepted communications. Min Jae's expression hardened. From whom? The rival organization. The officer swallowed. They've decided to move tonight. Emily's pulse raced. What does that mean? The room fell silent. No one wanted to answer. Finally, Min Jae did. It means they're coming. Outside, dozens of armed security personnel rushed into position. Vehicles approached the estate gate. Communication lines buzzed nonstop. The storm had arrived, and for the first time, Emily found herself standing in the center of a world she never knew existed. A world of power, secrets, danger. And one man willing to risk everything to protect her. The mansion transformed within minutes. Security teams rushed through hallways. Communication radios crackled constantly. Heavy gates locked automatically. Every entrance was secured. Emily stood near the window, her heart pounding. This wasn't a movie, this wasn't a story, this was real. And somehow she was caught in the middle of it. Min Jae remained calm, almost frighteningly calm. While everyone else rushed around, he stood perfectly still, studying information on a tablet. His confidence seemed to spread throughout the room. People trusted him, followed him, believed in him. A security officer approached. Boss, we've confirmed movement. How many? At least 20. Emily's eyes widened. 20. Min Jae nodded once. No, only calculation. The officer left. Emily finally, because of me. Min-jae looked at her. No, but they're here because of me. His answer was immediate, firm, protective. Emily wasn't sure why, but that mattered to her a lot. For years she had carried responsibility for everyone's problems. Daniel's failures, Sophia's mistakes, other people's happiness. Now someone was refusing to let her carry blame. The realization felt strangely emotional. Outside, rain began falling heavily against the windows. Thunder rolled across the mountains. The atmosphere became even more tense. Suddenly, another security guard entered. This one looked nervous. Boss, there's something else. Min-jae's an eyebrow. What? The guard hesitated, then handed over a photograph. Min-jae stared at it. His expression darkened instantly. Emily noticed. What is it? He handed her the picture. The moment she saw it, her stomach dropped. It was Daniel, standing with several unfamiliar men, meeting them secretly. The photograph had been taken only days earlier. What is this? Emily whispered. One of Min-jae's advisors answered, We believe your ex-husband provided information about you. The room felt ice cold. No. Emily shook her head. No, Daniel wouldn't. But even as she spoke, doubt appeared, wouldn't he? The man who publicly humiliated her? The man who betrayed her with her own sister? The man who destroyed their marriage? The painful truth was that she no longer knew who Daniel really was. Min-jae noticed her distress. Nothing is confirmed. But his tone suggested otherwise. Hours passed. The mansion remained on high alert, yet no attack came. Around midnight, Emily wandered into the kitchen. She couldn't sleep. Too much had happened. To her surprise, she found Min-jae there, making tea. The sight was oddly normal, almost funny. One of the most feared men in Asia standing in a kitchen making tea. Emily smiled despite herself. You make tea? Min-jae glanced at her. I'm full of surprises, she laughed. A genuine laugh, perhaps the first one all day. For a moment, the danger outside disappeared. It was just the two of them, sharing silence, sharing tea, sharing something neither dared name. Then Emily asked softly, Why me? Min-jae looked down at his cup. The first time words seemed difficult for him. Finally, he answered, Do you remember the first night when Emily nodded? The bus stop. I had a difficult day. A faint smile touched his lips. Actually, Emily listened quietly. I had money, he shrugged. Power, another shrug. Influence. Then his voice softened. But I couldn't remember the last time I trusted anyone. The confession surprised her, Min-jae continued. Everyone wanted something. His eyes met everyone except you. Emily felt her chest tighten. The honesty in his voice was impossible to ignore. You helped people who couldn't repay you. He smiled faintly. You reminded me that good people still exist. Neither spoke for several seconds. The moment felt fragile, important. Then alarms suddenly sounded again, this time louder. Urgent, a security officer's voice echoed through speakers. Intruders at the eastern perimeter. The atmosphere changed instantly. Min-jae stood. Every trace of warmth disappeared. The leader returned. The protector, the fighter, several guards rushed past. More voices filled the hallways. Emily followed Min-jae toward the security room. Large screens displayed live camera feeds. Dozens of armed men were attempting to breach the estate grounds. The attack had begun. Emily's heart raced. This wasn't something she could simply walk away from. She watched security personnel prepare. Some looked frightened, others determined. Then something unexpected happened. One of the younger guards appeared nervous, terrified actually. His hands trembled. Min-jae noticed immediately. The young man couldn't have been older than 22. Instead of criticizing him, Min-jae walked over, placed a hand on his shoulder and spoke quietly. Go home to your family tomorrow. The guard blinked. Confused, Min-jae smiled slightly. That's an order. The young man's fear instantly faded. His confidence returned. Emily watched the interaction closely. In that moment, she understood something important. The world called Min-jae dangerous. Maybe he was. But the people around him didn't follow him because they feared him. They followed him because he cared about them. The realization changed something inside her. Outside, thunder shook the mountains. Inside, the first shots rang out in the distance. The battle for the estate had begun, and before sunrise, Emily would discover just how far Min-jae was willing to go to protect the people he loved. The first gunshots echoed through the mountains. Emily flinched. The sound was far louder than anything she had imagined. Outside, rain poured relentlessly, turning the estate grounds into a dark maze of shadows and flashing security lights. Inside the command center, screens displayed movement from every angle. The attackers had breached the outer perimeter, but they were moving slowly, carefully, as if searching for something or someone. Emily. One of the security officers pointed at a monitor. They're heading toward the east wing. Min-jae's eyes narrowed. That was the section of the mansion where Emily's room was located. A dangerous silence filled the room. Then he spoke. Two security officers stepped forward. Emily shook her head. No. Everyone stared at her. No, one guard repeated. Emily took a deep breath. If they're here because of me, people shouldn't get hurt protecting me. The room fell silent. Several guards exchanged surprised glances. Even now, surrounded by danger, she was worried about others. Min-jae looked at her carefully. Then something unexpected happened. He smiled, not because he agreed, because she was exactly the person he believed her to be. Kind, selfless, brave. Even that's not how this works, he said gently. Before Emily could argue further, another explosion rocked the estate. Alarm screamed. The attack was escalating. Min-jae turned toward his men. Protect the staff first. The advisors looked shocked. The staff, everyone leave safely. But boss, his voice became firm. Everyone. No one argued after that. Emily watched the scene unfold. The feared Mafia boss wasn't protecting money or property or power. He was protecting people. That mattered more to him than anything else. The realization stayed with her. Minutes later, security teams escorted household employees through underground evacuation routes, cooks, gardeners, maintenance workers, drivers, all of them. Nobody was abandoned. Nobody was considered expendable. Outside, the storm grew worse. Inside, Min-jae continued directing operations. Then suddenly one of the screens changed. A new image appeared. The room froze. Daniel. He was standing beside the rival organization's leader. Emily's heart stopped. No, the photograph was recent, taken only hours earlier. This time there was no denying it. Daniel had betrayed her again. The evidence was undeniable. One advisor cursed under his breath. Another shook his head. Unbelievable. Emily stared at the screen, not because she was heartbroken. That pain had already happened. This hurt differently. She had spent years believing she knew Daniel. Now she realized she never truly had. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Not for the marriage, for the illusion, for the years she spent loving someone who never valued her. Min-jae noticed. Quietly, he handed her a handkerchief, the same simple gesture from the rainy night they met. Emily accepted it, and for the first time she didn't feel alone. Then another call came through. An officer answered. His face immediately went pale. What happened? Min-jae asked. The officer swallowed hard. The attackers have captured one of our security teams. The room grew tense. How many? 3. A heavy silence followed. One advisor spoke carefully. We should focus on defending. Several others nodded. From a tactical perspective, it made sense. Risking more people could make things worse. Min-jae listened, then asked a simple question. Are they alive? The officer nodded. Yes. Min-jae stood. Everyone instantly understood what was coming, including Emily. The advisors looked alarmed. Boss, no, it's too dangerous. You could be walking into a trap. Min-jae's response was immediate. They came here because I asked them to. The room fell silent. They have families. His voice was calm. They don't get left behind. Emily felt her chest tighten. Nobody had ever fought for her like that. Nobody had ever stood up for ordinary people with such certainty. At that moment, she finally understood why his men were so loyal. Not because they feared him, because he would never abandon them. Minutes later, Min-jae prepared to leave with a rescue team. Emily stopped him near the doorway. The storm raged outside. Thunder shook the sky. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Emily asked quietly, why do you always put everyone else first? The question caught him off guard. He looked away briefly. When he answered, his voice was softer than she had ever heard. Because I know what it feels like when nobody does. The words struck her deeply. Suddenly she saw him differently. Not as a mafia boss, not as a powerful leader, but as a man carrying old scars no one else could see. A man who had spent years protecting others because nobody had protected him. Their eyes met, neither moved, neither looked away. Something passed between them, something neither was ready to name. Then the moment ended. Min-jae stepped toward the door. The rescue mission was waiting. The danger was real, and there wasn't time for anything else. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. His gaze settled on Emily. A faint smile appeared. Stay safe. Then he disappeared into the storm. As the heavy doors closed behind him, Emily felt a fear she hadn't experienced before. Not fear for herself, fear for him. Because somewhere beyond the rain and darkness, a trap was waiting, and by sunrise, everything between them was about to change forever. The storm swallowed Min-jae and his rescue team. From the mansion's command center, Emily watched the security monitors with growing anxiety. Every minute felt like an hour. Rain distorted the camera feeds. Visibility was terrible. The rescue team moved through dense forest toward an abandoned warehouse several miles from the estate. According to intelligence reports, that was where the captured guards were being held. The room remained silent. No one spoke unless necessary. Everyone understood the stakes. Emily clasped her hands together. She had never prayed much before. Tonight, she found herself praying anyway. Not for herself, for Min-jae. Meanwhile, deep inside the warehouse, 3 injured guards sat tied to metal chairs, bruised, exhausted, but alive. The rival organization's leader paced slowly before them. A cruel smile crossed his. Your boss is coming. One guard spat blood onto the floor. He'll stop you, the man laughed. That's exactly what I'm counting on. Outside, headlights appeared through the rain. Min Jae had arrived. The trap was set, yet he walked forward anyway, because some promises mattered more than fear. Back at the mansion, Emily stared at the screen as Min Jae entered the warehouse. Then suddenly the monitors went black, every single one. The room erupted with alarmed voices. We lost the feed. What happened? Signal jamming. Emily's heart sank. Now nobody knew what was happening. Nobody knew if Min Jae was safe. Minutes crawled by, 5, 10, 15. Each second felt unbearable. Then a call finally came through. One of the officers answered immediately. His eyes widened, then he smiled. They're alive. The entire room exhaled. Emily nearly collapsed with relief. The rescue team had succeeded. The captured guards were safe, but the situation wasn't over, not even close. An hour later, vehicles returned to the estate. Security teams rushed outside. Emily followed. The rain had finally begun to slow. As the vehicle stopped, rescue guards stepped out first. Then Min Jae emerged, blood stained his sleeve. Emily's stomach dropped. Without thinking, she ran toward him. You're hurt, Min Jae looked surprised, then amused. It's not serious. It doesn't look minor. It's not my blood. Emily stopped. A few nearby guards left quietly. Min Jae shook his head. One of the men I rescued was injured. Relief flooded through her. Before she realized what she was doing, she hugged him. The world seemed to freeze. Even the security personnel looked shocked. Emily immediately stepped back, embarrassed. I was worried. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Min Jae smiled, the genuine kind, the kindly she ever seemed to see. I'm okay. The simple words brought comfort than she expected. Later that night, after the crisis had settled, Emily couldn't sleep. She wandered through the mansion until she found herself in the library. To her surprise, someone was already there. Sophia. Emily froze. Her younger sister stood near a bookshelf, looking exhausted, ashamed, broken. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Then Sophia started crying. Not graceful tears, not dramatic, the ugly kind, the honest kind. Emily's chest tightened. Months ago, she would have walked away. Now she simply stood still. Sophia lowered her head. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. Silence. I know I ruined everything. Another silence. Tears continued streaming down her face. Daniel lied to both of us. Emily listened quietly. He used me. Sophia's voice cracked, and I let him. For the first time since the betrayal, Emily saw genuine regret, not excuses, not blame, regret. Sophia wiped her eyes. I spent years taking your kindness for granted. Emily felt pain at those words because they were true. Sophia continued. You gave me everything. Her shoulders shook. And I repaid you by hurting you. The library became silent again, a long silence. Then Emily did something nobody expected, including herself. She walked forward and hugged her sister. Sophia broke down completely, sobbing against her shoulder. Years of guilt poured out all at once. Emily closed her eyes. The betrayal still hurt. The scars remained, but carrying hatred hurt too. Eventually she whispered, I can't change what happened. Sophia nodded through tears. I know, but I don't want to hate you forever. The word shattered whatever remained of Sophia's defenses. For the first time in months, two sisters began healing. Not because the past disappeared, because they chose not to let it define the future. From the library doorway, Min Jae quietly watched. He hadn't meant to interrupt, but what he witnessed left him speechless. Most people talked about forgiveness. Emily lived it, even after everything. Even after unimaginable betrayal, she still chose compassion. At that moment, Min Jae realized something that frightened him more than any enemy. He wasn't merely protecting Emily anymore. He had fallen in love with her completely. And for a man who had spent years believing love was a weakness, that realization changed everything. Unfortunately, far beyond the estate, another dangerous truth was emerging. The rival organization wasn't finished. Their failed attack had only made them more desperate. And they had just received information that could destroy Emily's future forever, information connected to her late parents. A secret hidden for decades, a secret nobody saw coming. The morning after Sophia's arrival, the estate felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in weeks, there were no alarms, no attacks, no emergency meetings, just silence. But peace never lasted long. By noon, Min Jae's intelligence team had uncovered the secret the rival organization planned to use against Emily. A thick file sat on the conference table. Everyone in the room looked serious. Emily stared at it nervously. What is it? Min Jae sat beside her. His expression was calm but concerned. Emily's heart skipped a beat. My parents, Min Jae nodded. One of his advisors opened the file. Inside were old photographs, legal documents, and newspaper clippings dating back nearly 30 years. Emily's hands trembled. What does this mean? The advisor took a breath. Before your parents died, they were involved in a large charitable foundation. Emily frowned. She already knew that. Her parents had spent much of their lives helping struggling families. What she didn't know was what came next, the advisor continued. Several wealthy businessmen tried to take control of the foundation. Emily listened carefully. They wanted the money. The room remained silent. But your parents refused. Another photograph slid across the table. Emily picked it up. Her eyes widened. One of the men in the picture was the father of the rival organization's current leader. Suddenly, everything made sense. The attacks, the investigations, the obsession. This wasn't about Min Jae, not entirely. It was revenge, a decades-old grudge. The rival family blamed Emily's parents for exposing corruption that had destroyed their reputation years ago. And now they wanted revenge against the last surviving member of that family. Emily sat quietly, thinking about everything, her parents, their kindness, their sacrifices, their courage. Then something unexpected happened. A second document emerged from the file, an official letter. Emily opened it carefully. As she read, tears filled her eyes. The letter had been written by her father shortly before his death. It contained a final request, a request nobody had discovered until now. The charitable foundation he created was to be transferred to Emily when she reached adulthood. Because of legal complications after her parents' deaths, the process had never been completed. The foundation still existed, and so did the funds. Millions of dollars intended to help families, children, and communities. Emily stared at the document in disbelief. Her father had left her something far more valuable than money. He had left her a mission, a purpose, a legacy of kindness. That evening, news arrived that the rival organization's leader wanted a meeting, a final meeting. Against everyone's advice, Emily insisted on attending. Min Jae refused at first, absolutely refused, but eventually he agreed under heavy security. The meeting took place in a neutral location. A large private hall. The rival leader entered with several men. His eyes immediately settled on Emily. For years he had imagined this moment. Years of anger, years of revenge, years of hatred. Then something unexpected happened. Emily stepped forward, not with threats, not with insults, not with fear, but compassion. "You've spent your whole life hating my family." The man stared silently. "My parents aren't here anymore." Silence. Another silence. Emily's voice softened. "How much pain has this revenge actually healed?" The question struck harder than any weapon. The man looked away. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in his eyes. Emily continued. "My parents helped people because they believed kindness mattered." The room was completely silent. "If I continue this cycle of hatred, then everything they stood for dies with them." Even Min Jae watched quietly. Emily wasn't trying to win. She wasn't trying to defeat anyone. She was trying to end something. Years of bitterness, years of suffering, years of revenge. The rival leader slowly lowered his head. For the first time in decades, someone had offered him peace instead of war, and he realized he was tired of fighting, tired of hatred, tired of carrying the past. Several moments later, he stood, then walked away without another word. His men followed. Just like that, the conflict ended, not through violence, but through courage to choose forgiveness. Months passed. The world slowly changed. Emily officially took control of her parents' foundation. New schools were built, scholarships were created, families received support, communities flourished, thousands of lives improved. Sophia joined the foundation as a volunteer, determined to spend the rest of her life making amends. As for Daniel, he watched from a distance, alone, not because Emily ruined his life, because he ruined it himself. His greatest punishment was realizing too late what he had lost. One beautiful spring afternoon, Emily stood in a park surrounded by children attending the opening of a new community center. Laughter filled the air, hope filled the future. Beside her stood Min Jae, not as a feared mafia boss, not as a powerful leader, just a man who had finally found peace. He looked at Emily and smiled. "You changed everything." Emily laughed softly. "No." She looked around at the families, volunteers, and children. "We changed everything." Min Jae reached into his pocket. Emily immediately recognized the small box. Her eyes widened. His smile grew nervous for perhaps the first time in his life. Emily Carter. Nearby children stopped playing. Volunteers turned around. Everyone watched. The mighty man who could command entire organizations suddenly seemed terrified. Emily couldn't stop smiling. Min Jae took her hand, then knelt down. Months ago, she had watched another man kneel. That moment had shattered her heart. This one healed it. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes, happy tears, the kind she once thought she'd never experience again. Around them, the world seemed to pause. The journey that began with betrayal had led to something unexpected. Not revenge, not power, not wealth, love, real love, the kind built on trust, respect, kindness, and choosing each other every single day. Emily smiled through tears. then gave the answer that changed both of their lives forever. Yes. The crowd erupted into cheers. Children laughed, Sophia cried. Even several of Min Jae's security guards looked emotional, and beneath the warm afternoon sun, surrounded by people whose lives had been touched by kindness, Emily finally understood something beautiful. Sometimes the end of one's story is simply the beginning of a better one. The end